Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics at Random. Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. Welcome aboard, welcome aboard. In the house, first one today is Mr. AVQ coming in from Brooklyn, New York. We also have Señorita Joanna from Los Angeles, California. Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard as well, Eric Hayes from Kingwood, Atascocita, and all the others in the regular chat. We also have welcome in for all our folks on Substack. Sorry, I just fired it up. I always fired it up before that big first rush comes. But anyhow, welcome aboard, Laura Waldron. Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard, Bruno Garini. Welcome aboard, Carolyn Brugmeyer. Welcome aboard, Donna Cryer. Welcome aboard, Carolyn, Mark, and Linda. And it doesn't give me everything. It puts that plus several others, etc. But anyhow, welcome to the program. We are going to have a great show for you today. Look, I spent some time looking at some TikTok videos from a few folks that had some quite intriguing things to talk about. And I think it is I hope these platforms continue to be used for open speech and not channeled to control free speech. We can all hope. Anyway, Lee Grant is in the house from Montgomery County. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Today's subject is, and let me go ahead and put that up onto the screen for today. Today's subject we are covering, para ver si lo tengo ahí puesto. Yes, we do. DOGE mobs ripping government agencies. David Brooks calls for uprising, and caller has recipe for Trump. I don't know how many of you know who David Brooks is. David Brooks is a long-time New York opinion columnist that I always enjoyed while I, as a contributing editor to Daily Kos and a contributing editor to Op-Ed. It wasn't hard to take a look at his articles and be able to critique it just very perfectly. But today he made a lot of sense. And I think that's where I want to start. Let me see if that's where I want. I tell you what, before I start here, let me start on DOGE. I'm going to start on DOGE first, and then we'll move from DOGE. And the reason why I want to do that is I want all of you to be well aware that not only is DOGE a failure, but DOGE is also a danger. And I want you to make sure to tell your friends that. I want you to share these articles. In fact, this one on DOGE, I'll be turning it into a news. All three of these segments that I'm doing today will be a newsletter by late tomorrow. All three of them will be sent out because I think it is imperative that people understand this. Welcome aboard, Tom C. from Michigan, Lee the Bearcat from Austin, Texas. Welcome to Politics Done Right. Welcome, Scatlin, and all the others. Oden, Linda Morgan, Don Crimer. All right, let's go ahead and start that DOGE piece that I did. I did this one, I think, either yesterday morning or this morning on KPFT 90.1 FM. I cleaned it up some. I want to play that, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Today, I want to talk about the resistance. Resisting that which wrongs you, which wrongs our country. I personally, and this is a personal statement, I consider the government that we have right now, both the leadership in Congress, the President of the United States, and the cabinet. This is my personal opinion. I see it as treasonous. I see them as traitors. With what they've done with DOGE in Congress, or rather in the different federal agencies, and reports that are coming out with the kinds of controls that these folks were taking on our vital computer systems, our nervous system in the government. I am concerned that we have sold out their American people, sold you out. This is not conjecture anymore. Yesterday on Maddo, and it's still, what is really behooving me is that even as much of this information is coming out, our mainstream media refuses to cover it, even as they cover peripheral issues and issues that are easily debunked, or even as they give Donald Trump the space and the airtime to lie to you. We'll go over that a little bit later. But Rachel Maddow had a piece yesterday where one of the guys that run the computer analysts, the internet analysts at one of these agencies, they kept on monitoring the systems because the DOGE people came in. They created administrative accounts. These accounts, they tried to make it that it could not be monitored, meaning that whenever you open an account in a computer system, a computer network, a lot of these accounts have what's known as tracebacks, or they allow you to monitor things that have happened. These accounts were created and they couldn't be monitored. They disabled all this monitoring, and they opened up these different computer systems in such a manner that it can have mobile access that shouldn't be there. And soon after that was done, accounts that were created on these computers, in this case, it was the NLRB, but one can extrapolate that on other agencies that DOGE went, whether it be IRS, NSA, SAID, and all these other places, that likely these all guys that came in and got these admin accounts likely did the same thing. We don't have the evidence for that. We have the evidence for what happened at the NLRB. Now, as soon as these accounts, or soon after, within 15 minutes of the creation of these accounts, external IP addresses with Genesis in Russia attempted to get into these systems with these user IDs. Now, the DOGE people, what evidently they didn't know is that within the core of the NLRB system, it prevents IPs from certain locales, in this case, Russia. Even if they have access to log in, the data cannot go out to those IPs. So in that particular login sequence of events that occurred, they didn't get in. But it occurred immediately after DOGE created those accounts, according to the report from the analyst that worked at the NLRB that appeared with his lawyer and the whistleblower affidavit on Rachel Maddow last night. But here's the kicker. They also found within the data that soon after these guys came to that area, there was a spike in text data that was exported from those computer systems. I think it was an NLRB system, in which 10 gigabytes of text got, and you can see that spike. It's orders of magnitude greater than the normal traffic that those computer systems have. They don't exactly know what that traffic is. I don't know if they have enough forensic yet to read that traffic, but it was 10 gigabytes of data. Do you know what 10 gigabytes of data at an NLRB that has contracts and secret information from companies, etc., what that means? When I talk about treasonous and the lack of transparency with what these guys are doing, this is what I'm talking about. And this is something that I think this is a type of news that you break into normal programming and say, look at what have been found. We have these people that come to claim they're going to make federal government more efficient, and somehow data starts leaving the federal government in the realm of gigabytes. This is I know to a lot of people this is sort of over the technical part is, but the actuality isn't that your government, who has all your data, and people come in with admin passwords and make it possible for all that data to go out. Do you understand what can be done with that? Let me just say, personally, a person who lives online like myself, I live my life as if my data is stolen. I live my life that way, but most people don't. And a lot of people believe in the sanctity and security of the IRS having your data, the Social Security Office having your data, the SSI, the Medicare have your data, etc. Do you know what can be done with that data in the hands of other people, not only for selling your data, but also for monitoring, for creating shenanigans that stops your Social Security check from coming in? There is a lot that can happen. That's treasonous. That's traitors. So that is the first thing that got to me. And you have to wonder if that wasn't the real reason why they created this DOGE project. Because the DOGE project that I hear many of my brothers and sisters of the MAGA persuasion who call in here sometimes talking about DOGE is going to save money, and DOGE is saving money and finding corruption and all of that. They found none of it. The last report now proved that it's not $1 or $2 trillion that DOGE have saved. The last thing that they printed on their website was only saved $150 billion. And when the New York Times and the others went through the data, even that $150 billion was suspect. And much of that came from not finding waste and fraud, but simply cutting programs that from the NIH and healthcare, etc., research, etc. The damage that is being done to our country in this regard, folks, is something that we all need to stand up for or stand up to. And the reality is we are. That's the great thing. We are standing up. But likewise, and again, if you watch the mainstream media, you rarely sees it. Luckily, Rachel Maddows and a few shows you every day the hundreds of events that's occurring every day. They show you the humongous crowds that the oligarchy tour that Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are doing. It shows you that is a very effective thing, where even in a place like Idaho, they bring in 12,000 people. LA, over 20,000 people. Arizona, 30,000 people. So we are talking about people being engaged and not being represented. But again, folks, we have to be the answer. We have to be the solution to that which ails us, to that which is damaging us.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And Noel Keith on Substack, you're correct. The Russian mob will probably sell it to the companies involved, according to Noel Reef on Substack. Also, he says a hobbled NLRB means we might as well have national and general strikes. Yep. Yes, I agree. Yes, I agree. All right, let's see what else we have in the chat right now. So bear with me. We have Lee Grant says, I hope your resistance to these traitors remains nonviolent. That is the intent. In fact, our resistance is always nonviolent. Most of the violence that you see or that you saw during a few of the protests, we actually have documented the instigators that did it. We know who they are. And most of them were, what again? Arrested. Paul Fleming says, Tesla has settled a racial discrimination lawsuit by a black female employee who claimed the manager at its Fremont, California plant sometimes greeted workers by saying, welcome to the plantation, or welcome to the slave house. That's interesting. We also have from E2247, welcome E2247, who says, gratuitous, something gratuitous, where it is. Gratuitous violence, mocking, derision, intimidating, brutality in mean of execution typifies powers that be all are standard on exceptional tactics. Number 47, the felon is a case study. I agree 100%. Welcome aboard Stag Bergen Creek. Only the rights violence. That is generally the case. Eric says, Egberto, you are in support of Tesla stuff? No, I'm not in support of anything with regards to Tesla. I am in support of green energy, But I think what Elon Musk has done is he has given up any goodwill he might have had with this issue. But not to worry, Elon didn't create anything with green energy intent. Elon is just a part of what we call end state capitalism and taking advantage of what's going on right now. So no concern whatsoever. Let's see what else we've got. What else have we got here? Okay, I have another video. And this one is the main one that I want to talk about. And this has to do with David Brooks. I did this one live this morning on KPFT, then I cleaned it up a bit for your eyes only, reduce the length of it. But this is an important piece. And the reason it's important is when you reach David Brooks talking about uprising, when you have a columnist like a conservative columnist like David Brooks, it says a whole lot. So I want to go into that now, and then we'll take it on the other side. But take a look at this. This one is also a video that we should share.
David Brooks is a conservative writer at the New York Times that I've had a lot of fun writing counter blogs against some of his articles for decades, both at Daily Kos, at Op-Ed News, and other places. But I tell you what, I am in full concert with something that he wrote yesterday called What's Happening is Not Normal. America Needs an Uprising That Is Not Normal. And the reason this one took my eye is because this coming out of David Brooks, for David Brooks, this conservative writer, to take on what he's taken on with this, it's all, it seems almost out of. We'll go there. Welcome aboard to the brother from Houston, Texas. And on the chat, I don't see all of them, but I see some. I see one of our latest members, Uju M, says, good morning, South Florida. Uju M also says, seems like all the weak spots is the entire Constitution. Unfortunately, there were so many loopholes. And that is exactly what Howard was alluding to. Trump really knocks a lot of the loopholes. We've been talking about that for several years now. Anyway, I want to start with David Brooks' article, a few paragraphs. It says, in the beginning, there was agony. Under the empires of old, the strong did what they willed and the weak suffered what they must. But over the centuries, people built the sinews of civilization, constitutions to restrain power, international alliances to promote peace, legal systems to peacefully settle disputes, scientific institutions to cure disease, news outlets to advance public understanding, charitable organizations to ease suffering, business to build wealth and spread prosperity, and the universities to preserve, transmit, and advance the glories of our way of life. These institutions make our lives sweet, loving, creative, rather than nasty, brutish, and short. Trumpism is threatening all of that. It is primarily about the acquisition of power for its own sake. It is multi-front assault to make the earth a playground for ruthless men. So, of course, any institution that might restrain power must be weakened or destroyed. Trumpism is about ego, appetite, and acquisitiveness, and is driven by a primal aversion to the highly elements of the human spirits, learning, compassion, scientific wonder, pursuit of justice. So far, we have treated the various assaults of President Trump and the acolytes in his administration as a series of different attacks. I pause from his article because I want to add something there. David Brooks was a huge supporter of Donald Trump. And one of the failures of conservatives when they write very good articles like this is they fail to see the genesis of the problem. And the genesis of the problem, in effect, isn't Trumpism, because Trumpism is just the advancement of Reaganomics. It's just the advancement of the society. It's just the advancement of all these things that started long time ago. It always, because these are things that have never been really popular with the masses. You needed Trumpism. You needed a clobber. You needed somebody who could just say, I don't give a damn about people. It's our way. So he's absolutely right what Brooks is saying, but not understanding or not pointing out the genesis of where we're at today, I think is one deficiency of his article. Later on in his article, he says, slowly, many of us are realizing that we need to band together. You think? I mean, isn't that what, when I talk about wanting to bring everybody into the fold, when I talk about we have to find a way to communicate with our MAGA brothers and sisters on the right and the most left elements on our left, all of us have to come together because we're in the same boat. And generally what you find is we're basically looking for the same thing, if on different paths to get there. But what many times we forget is we are just cogs in the wheel of those seeking power. The people that have given Trump power, that have been a part of the Trumpism movement, the people that are going to get screwed the most is actually those same people, not realizing they're bringing the demise to themselves. So David Brooks says several members of the Big Ten Conference are working on forming an alliance to defend academic freedom. So he's showing that groups are starting to get together to buck Trump. But he shows another important point. It's not enough. Not quite yet. 18 schools are fighting, but there are 4,000 schools, universities, and colleges out there that need to get with the program. He continues and says, it's time for a comprehensive national civic uprising. It's time for Americans in universities, law, business, nonprofits, and the scientific community and civil servants and beyond to form one coordinated mass movement. Trump is about power. The only way he's going to be stopped is if he's confronted by some movement that possesses rival power. Peoples throughout history have done exactly this when confronted by an authoritarian assault. In their book, Why Civil Resistance Works, Erika Chenoweth and Maria J. Stefan looked in hundreds of nonviolent uprisings. These movements use many different tools at their disposal: lawsuits, mass rallies, strikes, work slowdowns, boycotts, and other forms of non-cooperation and insistence. Later I'm going to play a video from a person who says, we need more than actually, I played that with you guys yesterday. It needs more than just rallies. You're going to have to do the other things. And that's what David Brooks is pointing out here, boycotts, etc. These movements began small, like they have begun with this new election of Donald Trump, and then built up. They developed clear messages and appealed to a variety of groups. They shifted the narrative so that authoritarians were no longer on permanent offense. Right now, Donald Trump is just moving forward like a bulldozer. Blocks have to be placed to slow it down so that you can eventually stop it. If you have a meteor coming at full speed, the only thing you can do is put resistance in its path to then blow it up. Okay? Sometimes they use nonviolence means to provoke the regime into taking violent action, which shocks the nation, undercuts the regime's authority, and further strengthens the movement. Remember Kent State? Remember Selma? Remember all those other places? In peaceful, some of us put our bodies on the line peacefully. The government or the evil entity overreacts, and everybody sees who the evil entity really is. You know, what we're seeing with Abrego in El Salvador opens the door for many Americans to say, oh my God, if they can do that to Abrego, if they can do that to him, they can do it to any naturalized citizen in America and disappear them without having reasons to do so. And if they can do that to a naturalized citizens, which I am, eventually they can do it to you, because that's how it goes. One step at a time, one step at a time. Think of civil rights movement in Selma. Right now, Trumpism is dividing civil society. If done right, the civic uprising can begin to divide the forces of Trumpism. And near the end, he says the following, and this is what I like. He says, in other words, a civic uprising has to have a short-term vision and a long-term vision. Short-term, stop Trump, foil his efforts, pile on the lawsuits, turn some of his followers against him. The second is a long-term vision of a fairer society that is not just hard on Trump, but hard on the what? The causes of Trumpism. One that offers a positive vision, whether it's the university, the immigration system, or the global economy. We can't go back to the status quo that prevailed when Trump first rode down the escalator. I am really not a movement guy, says David Brooks. I don't naturally march in demonstrations or attend rallies, and I'm not covering as a journalist. But this is what America needs right now. Trump is shackling the greatest institutions in American life. We have nothing to lose but our chains. Yes, he's right. He's right. He's not deep enough, but he's right. We have to unshackle the chains, and the biggest chains that we have today are the chains in our minds. There was a time when Black people had chains and prevented them from moving forward because they didn't need to chain anybody else, right? Because everybody could look down at those folks in chains and says, I'll take whatever the master gives because at least I am not in chains. Then the chains were removed. And instead of getting physical chains of steel or physical chains of iron, we began to get chains, virtual chains in the mind. Chains in the mind is the genesis of neoliberalism. Chains in the mind is the genesis is what allows neoliberalism. Chains in the mind is what allows unfettered capitalism. Chains in the mind is what allows us to not resist when those of lesser value takes power over us. And it's the unchaining of the mind, and it's doing much of what we hear Brother Brooks say. It's bringing folks into the know. It's reminding our economic system that there is a ghetto, a barrio, and Appalachia, and that they all need to be funded from us all. It's reminding folks that while there are things that are like racism that are still in effect and plays a big part in allowing Trumpism to fester, that if those of us in the know who promote knowledge, who promote unity, who promote can reach no matter what. That is what's important. And I hope folks listen to what David Brooks have to say and what we've been speaking about for a long time. Resistance, and empathy, compassion, and giving everybody in the masses, giving everybody in the working class a place to land. All right, folks, that's the first subject that I wanted to cover. Cheryl Atkins on Substack says, good morning. One, if by land, two, if by sea, exactly 250 years ago. Later, we're in the same place as the Massachusetts colonists were on the coup of our re-independence. I love those words. M says, it's truly started when compromise was made to end Reconstruction. Yes, that is so true. And then with the decision of Brown Board of People, America were cornered into rejecting the liberal consensus that all had, which was the government role is to be the Reagan came among and the theft began, the transfer of wealth from the top to the top 90% and top 1%. And this is how we got here. All great thoughts, all great statements, my dear brother.
Absolutely so, folks. Absolutely so. Anyhow, welcome aboard all our newcomers. Noel Keith says a hobble. Oh, I read that one already. If you have anything else to say, just put it in the chat. Michael says, I am laughing at Eric right now. For what he says, I mean, you have to take it as amusing. I get it. Welcome, Yvette Avery Herod from Atlanta, Georgia. Welcome to the chat. We also have Paul Fleming says, Dr. Oz, it's your patriotic duty to take care of yourself. Healthy people don't consume health care resources. The best way to reduce drug spending is to use less drugs, says the person that sells drugs. Isn't that funny? We also have, when asked about FSU shooting, Trump said, I have an obligation to protect the Second Amendment. Actually, you have an obligation to protect our children from being shot at school, etc. Michael Rundin says, Paul, I don't get that. Our nation is the only one that doesn't have health care as a right for its citizenship. It is a shame. It is a shame. It is a shame. And that is true. Carl Cox says CSEC Hayes are wrong. Like all members of the MAGA crowd, they worship the cult leader. Trump wants to control government agencies, all college, all law enforcement. Technically speaking, the executive is supposed to run those agencies, I mean, within the constructs of the law. But what he's doing is completely wrong. All right, we also have Paul Fleming says, current and former employees say fewer people working at NOAA and fewer resources could whittle away the agency's ability to carry out its mission. And then when the first big hurricane comes, you're going to hear the Republicans talking about mismanagement by anybody but his administration, right? It is comical what we see here. All right. Let's go ahead and go to our last video. This one is a short video. And let me tell you, I'm going to surprise a friend today. Tom Zarnick, who I think I saw in the chat. Did I see Tom in the chat earlier? Anyway, Tom called us this morning about the letter from David Brooks. And Tom himself has a good idea on what we need to do to, how should I say this, to beat back Trump. And that's what I want to play right now. It's not very long. It's long for a call because, you know, I wanted to have his whole words out because he was pretty solid. So here we go with our good friend, Tom Zarnick. Let's go to Tom on the phone. Come on in, Tom. How you doing this morning?
Yesterday I called you on your show and had a problem with the phone.
Is this my brother Tom Zarnick?
Yes, the poet.
Hey Tom, how you doing, brother? Talk to me. Great to talk to you.
Boy, I'm really glad at this topic because that's what I was going to mention yesterday. I've been writing about this because it's very important that we go beyond just protest and that we actually think about what we may have to do in the next step, which you were talking about with David Brooks, and that would be some kind of general strike to hit the economy. And I was thinking about, though, what we can do beyond that if that doesn't work. But first, we have to think about what the great writers and philosophers said before, Henry David Thoreau, about civil disobedience, and then Gandhi, passive resistance, and Martin Luther King, nonviolent resistance or defiance. And we have to keep moving, putting the pressure on, one step at a time. And I hate you do a thought experiment, what could happen, and I worry about what Trump might do in response. And he has hinted at this with the Insurrection Act and the possibility of declaring martial law. And if that happens, we have to be firm, and we have to then band together, like you said, and make sure that he feels the pressure directly, not just, we just can't talk. We have to take action. And we may even have to go to Washington, D.C. and surround the White House or the Capitol. But the important thing is that it's be nonviolent, because if any violence happens, that just gives the other side an excuse to do the same thing. And that would wreck the whole point of our protest and our resistance. And the other thing would be, at some point, I was thinking about this, but if it gets so bad that that's shut down, then we have to think about how we, in our daily lives, and if we can't band together because of law or whatever, insurrection, then we have to be like what happened during World War II with the French resistance and the French underground. And if you read about what they did, and this is where it gets tricky, because then I don't want to be considered a terrorist or anything, because that's, again, it has to be nonviolent, but it has to be a form of nonviolent sabotage where the system, and I would call it something like Operation Monkey Wrench, where you shut down things, but passively. You just refuse to work, or you refuse to cooperate with authorities, and then you may even have to sabotage communications in the sense that you you point in wrong directions to where, let's say, ICE or these groups want to go to gather up people, and you make it difficult for them to even know what's right and what's real, and at that point, they have a very hard time figuring out who's the enemy, and then at that point, you can do like the French did and cooperate with groups that want to make this very difficult for our country to function without democracy. So anyway, I don't want to get too far into that, but it's interesting reading history on it. And I'm glad you brought up David Brooke, because he has really become a convert to this whole movement. And I hope that other writers and thinkers and politicians do the same.
You know, I tell you, Tom, that's what made this article so striking to me. For David Brooks to get where he's at right now, it just tells you the magnitude of our current state. Now, one of the things I like about what you said is what we're doing peaceful. The idea being we are not in here to hurt our fellow man. We're in here to change policy and force in an illegitimate government to legitimize itself or be removed. I think what you said makes a lot of sense, and that is exactly where we need to go. But that is a kind of commentary that I would expect from you, Tom. And by the way, folks, I like to call Tom our poet laureate on the 3 o'clock program, because he always has some great limericks that I get to read at first glance as soon as he writes it. Anyway, anything else, Tom, you want to add before we move on?
No, that's it. I appreciate you so much, Egberto. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, my brother. You have a wonderful rest of your day, sir.
That was our one and only Tom Zornick. All right, we have in the chat, I refuse to buy gas through my rig is on its half gallon. Oh, there you go. Do it very slowly. Drive very slowly. All right, we also have AVQ. Well, that is a private conversation. We have, not private, but conversation within then. Tom C. says, yes, I'm here. Ahimsa collective resistance is the answer. Ahimsa collective resistance. What is ahimsa? What am I missing? I forget. You know, sometimes I get a glance or a stare. All right, we also have... let's see. Paul says, new. Trump's war on measurement means losing data on drug use, maternal morality, climate change, and more by slashing teams that gather critical data. The administration has left the federal government with no way of understanding its policies or working, and created a black hole of information whose consequences could ripple out for decades. Let me tell you something. The U.S. government is one of the top-notch collectors of data. You can find spreadsheets of all kinds of data throughout government. The one good thing, let me just mention this, and I don't have the address or the particular website that's doing it right now, but knowing that Donald Trump was coming into power, there are various universities and students that took it onto themselves to download the entire data set from the government at this point in time. So we are going to have a horrendous following 3.5 years that's left or 3 and change that's left for the Trump administration. The data will not be reliable for the next 3 point something. In fact, I don't even know if data like the employment report and inflation report, I don't know how accurate that's going to be because of Trump's proclivity to lie, and because of Trump's proclivity to hire people who are willing to lie for him. So kudos to all those people that have started downloading the government's data set. And that is the data that is exposed to everybody. And that's most of the government data, because most of the government data that's not classified is a part of the public domain. So we can thank those people that are actually doing that work. And at this point in time, I have no more videos, so it's open time for you to give us a call, 281-823-7747. Again, that number is 281-823-7747. Give us a call if you have anything to add, if you want to add to the discussion. I would love to hear from you. Una vez más lo voy a repetir. One more time, I will repeat. It is 281-823-7747. 7747. In the time being, as I wait for someone to call in, I want you to check this particular article out on Common Dreams specifically. Let me go ahead and get it onto the screen. This is welfare for billionaire cheats. Trump IRS ditches efforts to close major loopholes. You know, they talk about us wanting to bring the deficits down. Not only do we want to bring look, under the current, I don't want anybody calling me to tell me, Egberto, money, there's a lot we can do with money that doesn't require paying the debt. I understand all of that. But in the current paradigm, in our current financial paradigm, following Keynesian economics, as well as capitalism as defined by Martin Freeman, we need to get our deficits down. And you can only do that if somebody pays so that you don't have to borrow that money. Right now, Japan has already started selling our bonds. And they're selling our bonds, which means our deficits could explode. Here, let me explain this real quick. If all those bond holders, meaning Japan being the largest bond holder with $1.07 trillion in our bonds, so followed by China that has $870-something billion worth of bonds. If at some time they start to unload those bonds, what that means is bond prices fall, the interest rates go up for any new bonds being sold, because that means that there's a glut of known bonds out there. So therefore, the price that the United States government will have to pay to loan itself monies for not only its old debt that is getting refinanced, but the new debt that Donald Trump is trying to put on at the order of $2 to $4 trillion, it will be hard as hell to get that money at a low interest rate. We're talking probably picking it up at 4, 5, 6%. That will explode the deficit, because our deficits was under control for a long time when interest rates were cheap, when bond prices, were low. But now, about high. What now? If they start to sell our bonds, our budget deficit, even if we were to keep everything constant, if we added no more debt, and if we added no more debt and nominally balanced the budget, the deficit would still go through the roof, because the amount of money that we pay right now, we pay about $1 trillion. Think about this, folks. Every time you pay your taxes, 25 cents of every dollar goes to a rich person owning American bonds. I want you to think about that. Every time you pay your taxes, automatically 25% of those taxes is automatically transferred to rich people. Understand what that means. We are subsidizing a solid investment by rich folks because of our spending methodologies. I want you guys to realize that. Michael Rudden says, see ya next week. And for anyone participating in his 50501 protest, see ya tomorrow. I should have people in the field to bring some of that live. I can't wait for the 50501 protest. It was really great here in Houston, and I think we're about to have it again. So, folks, that's important. All right, calls again. Telephone number 281-823-7747 for anybody who wants to call in and make a statement or want a question answered or whatever. Give me a call, 281-823-7747. Or throw it into the chat, whichever chat you want to throw it into, whether it's the Substack chat, I think I can actually see that now, or the other chat. Let's see. Lee the Bearcat says, Happy Good Friday, and don't forget Happy Easter eggs coming. Okay. Donald Trump this morning said that when he had his press conference, and this is something that I find it hard that the Ray Brackens. Brother Ray Brackens, talk to me. How you doing this afternoon?
I'm good, brother. I'm good, brother. It's hot, but it's actually a little breezy outside. So, um, speaking of what you were saying about that tax cheats, it's
Yes.
it's so sad that once again we stuck in a situation where the rich get to funnel money upward. It's like a vacuum. It's like every dollar that we might have been able to accumulate in this economy, we're not going to see any of that. Any wage raises that happen, all of that money is going to be sucked up into the inflation. And it's just really sad that people haven't learned that, you know, um, the Republican Party as a whole, it's never going to be for the little man or the working class or minorities as far as, black people, immigrants. I don't know. Like, hopefully, when Trump expires by natural causes, um, his brand and everything that it stands for will expire. But I don't put nothing past those rotten children he has either. So there's only one Trump that I actually trust, and that's Mary. She's the cool
That's
one.
yeah, the one who
Everybody
writes the
else,
books. Yeah.
F them.
Let me just say this.
Yeah.
I want to bust your bubble. You're my buddy, my brother, all of that good stuff. I want to bust your bubble. Here's the issue. Trumpism isn't about Trump. Trumpism and MAGA isn't Trump. Trumpism and MAGA is a natural continuation of supply side economics that a lot of us put it at a start with voodoo economics from Reagan, and I explained it in my book here called "As I See It: Class Warfare: The Only Resort to Right Wing Doom." But here's the deal: it is Trumpism is just a natural extension of supply side economics. It's a natural extension of Reaganomics, what the Bush number one called voodoo economics, and it will. We have to actually bust it completely up. In other words, even if Trump dies tomorrow, it is maintained until this is one thing where progressives have to actively fight it out. They have to purge it. And I don't know if a lot of people are ready for this type of fight that you heard Brother Zarnik talk about. We have to
Well, if I
hold
could
it back.
push back a little back,
Sure,
if I
please
could
do,
push
please do.
back just a little bit,
Sure, sure.
the thing about it is that Trumpism, as brought by Donald Trump, had been normalized to a level we
Yes.
have not seen.
Hold one
And
second. Let me get this call, and I'm going to continue. I'm going to tie it in. All right. Peter, hold a
what
second.
I'm saying is,
Let me continue with. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
and what I'm saying is that the brand of
Hold one second.
yeah,
Please turn
basically the
down
brand of
please turn
progressivism.
down the radio. Whoever has it on. I think it's you, Peter, so that we don't get the feedback. All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Ray.
I'll keep talking. So yeah, as I was saying, you take the same policies and attach to somebody like a Mitt Romney or or say a John McCain, and all of a sudden, you know what? The black man is a much better option. Like you said, it's a system, and basically Trump is just perpetuating it. But again, his level of popularity as an icon in entertainment is what has made it so palatable for people who otherwise would have looked at that and said, "Hell no, I'm not gonna do it." But
I agree with you 100%. I agree
he's a
with you 100% on that, and I understand what you're trying to say there, which is very,
yeah,
very important, right? But the part that I
big,
want to add is a lot of people believe that as soon as Donald Trump is out of the picture, that all this stuff is gone. I want people to
oh
realize that
no,
we
no.
have to clean this whole thing up. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, and I mean it's his cult of personality that has made it so palatable for people that otherwise would have looked and said, "Hell no." But it's like, he's the smiling face on the TV that they learn to love for better or worse. and trust. And of
Right.
course, now we see for better, or in our case, very
For
much
worse.
worse.
Absolutely so.
But
Absolutely so.
I'll step back. I know we got another brother on the phone, Peter.
No, I don't know. Peter seemed to have gone, but let's go ahead and let me continue with this welfare for billionaire tax sheets. And let's see if Peter will call back, but or the person who called will call back. But thank you very much for your call, Ray.
Oh, thank you for the space, Egberto. I'll keep watching.
Absolutely, my brother. All right, folks. Going back to what we started about, the Trump administration quietly announced on Thursday that it is abandoning a Biden era effort to close a loophole that allows large businesses partnership to repeatedly manipulate the value of their assets to minimize their tax obligations. The Internal Revenue Service and Treasury Department announced the decision in a notice that received little attention in the mainstream press. The notice states that the administration, guided by an executive order President Donald Trump signed in February, intends to scrap so-called basis shifting regulations that were finalized at the end of former President Joe Biden's White House term. As the Biden Treasury Department explained last year, it was targeting a tactic whereby a single business that operates through many different legal entities enters into a set of transactions that manipulate partnership tax rules to maximize tax deductions and minimize tax liabilities. These transactions defies Congress' intent to avoid tax liability with little to no other economic consequences for the participating business. The department said, for example, a partnership might shift tax basis from property that does not generate tax deductions, such as stock or land, to property that does, such as equipment. Taxpayers may also use these techniques to depreciate the same asset over and over again. I mean, just think about that. You buy a piece of equipment, you completely get its life. You do a 179 option on it to depreciate the whole, you know what, out of it. And then you just pass that asset to another one of your subsidiaries and they start the depreciation process all over again. I mean, there are a lot of different techniques that these people use. And the thing about it is Biden was putting a stop to that, close these loopholes to ensure that we collect more tax revenues from tax cheats, which is what they're doing. But what do? They close these loopholes, or rather they open these loopholes and people continue to use them. So folks, as you can see, on a lot of this stuff isn't covered in the mainstream media, just like this Common Dreams article pointed out. A lot of this isn't covered. When it's not covered, people can't raise hell about it. Well, we are covering it now. Make sure that we go up against that tax loophole, tax break, that executive order that Donald Trump is writing, and we need to make sure that in this new bill that the Republicans are putting out there, that new bill does not include the repeal of that mandate that Biden left, which prevented all these shenanigans that these small companies, or not these small companies, that these partnerships are able to do to manipulate the tax system to once again take care of to rip us off. And again, remember, every dollar not paid in taxes is a dollar we either have to pay ourselves or borrow. And every time we borrow, at current rates, it's a 25% transfer of our wealth to rich people. Please remember that. It is important. Anyway, we're at 56 and time to shut the show down pretty much. So what I want to ask of you is those of you who see the value in what we're doing here. Beforehand, we have Lee Bearcat in Austin says, Egberto, when you had businesses, did you ever use write-off for taxes? I used 179 tax write-offs for my assets. But again, I followed the law. I didn't try to circumvent the law. I followed the law. I didn't try to circumvent the law. Anyhow, folks, those of you who are listening to us, who are watching us, whether you are on Substack, whether you are on TikTok, whether you are on Instagram, YouTube, or live wherever, I want to ask that you support our program. It's very easy to support our program. You can support us by supporting our Egberto Off the Record newsletter. Our newsletter, along with our YouTube channel, is used to subsidize our entire enterprise. We don't just do radio. we don't just do articles. We write newsletter articles in newspapers, books. We do all of this to flood the zone with the truth, with progressive message, to counteract what you find coming out from the right wing. And as you all know, the right wing invests billions. And when I'm not kidding, they invest billions in misinforming you, from the Cato Institute to the Heritage Foundation to all the channels by iHeart and all these other networks that are there to ill-inform you, misinform you. We don't have a machine that does the opposite. Even our DNC and the Democratic machine and all these other guys, they all work with the corporate sector in most of what they do. Those of us that are progressives have a lot of these types of news outlets. And these are the types of news outlets that need your support. This is a job. This is a one-person operation where we do 16 hours a day researching, writing, cracking videos, producing videos. We do it all here. And what we're asking is for your kind support so that we can continue doing our part in flooding the zone. And how can you do that? You can do that by simply going to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter and becoming a paid subscriber. We have a whole lot of subscribers. We have only a few hundred paid subscribers. We need a few thousand paid subscribers to make this eventually a break-even situation. If I told you how we currently do the Delta funding, you'd say you're crazy. But we believe in what we're doing. We believe in flooding the zone. We believe that this has to be done. So please consider becoming a paid subscriber of our newsletter. If you're in Substack platform, just go ahead and do it from the Substack platform. Otherwise, if you're on your phone or website, you can go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. That'll take you to our Substack sign-up page as well. We also have a Patreon and many other ways to support, but what I'm asking those that have the wherewithal to please support us via our Substack. That is politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. We'll send you to our Substack page and you can become a paid subscriber and make sure we can continue to do this work. Visit our websites. We have many websites. Check out our books. And by the way, if you become a paid subscriber of our newsletter, all those books that you see scrolling online right now, you read for free on the Substack platform. All those books are available for you to read on the Substack platform to all our paid subscribers. So once again, please consider it. I got to get out of here. My name is Egberto Willies. Love you all. This is Politics Done Right. And you know how I end this baby. I am what? Out. Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.